Hello everyone and welcome to game 3 of the second day of the finals. It's Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces against Vladislav Artemiev. Magnus won the first match and then he started the second match by winning the first game. Second game where Artemiev had the white pieces ended in a draw, and now Magnus again with the white pieces in the third game. It's again a very impressive game, so let's dive straight into it. Magnus with the white pieces opens with e4. We have c5 by Artemiev. He goes for the Sicilian defense, knight to f3. We have d6 and d4, so just normal. Sicilian captures, knight f6, knight to c3, and a6 now, going for the Najdorf Sicilian, and now bishop to e2, the Opovcensky variation. We have g6, Artemiev preparing to fianchetto his dark square bishop, and Magnus, sort of immediately starts the attack with the g4. We have h6 preventing g5, and now bishop to e3. Later on you can play a move like f3 and then continue with h4, g5, and all depending on what black plays. Bishop to g7, and now f3, strengthening his position. So we basically transposed into the classical dragon. We have b5, advancing this pawn on the queen side, preparing standard moves like bishop b7, knight d7, rook to c8. And now there are a few games where queen to d2 was played, but here we have the immediate a3, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Artemiev continues. We have bishop to b7, queen to d2, Magnus prepares to castle queenside, and now knight to c6, attacking the knight in the center. We have queenside castles, and now Artemiev wants to start the attack as soon as possible and plays b4. Now, what can Magnus do here? Well, he starts by capturing the knight on c6, and now if you go for this b captures on c3, yes, it does come with an attack on the queen. We're simply going to capture, and now we defend our knight. And if something like rook to c8, then it's not a problem. We can simply move it, or better yet, queen to c7, just putting pressure on the knight here. We're just going to move it, knight to a5, and now you could trade here, but it's not nothing for black to look forward to. This bishop here isn't very impressive. The knight here is actually pretty good. You can play king to d2, bring the rooks to the b file, double up here, so a pretty good position for white. So instead, after knight captures on c6, we have bishop captures first, and now a captures on b4. So Magnus wins a pawn here, but it's exactly what Artemiev wanted. Queen to b8, and now he wants to play a5 and perhaps open up the position. We have knight to d5 by Magnus, now defending the b4 pawn once again, and now you have to play bishop captures on d5 here. Sorry, you have to play knight captures on d5, but Artemiev played bishop captures on d5, and this really puts him in a difficult situation. Here, after knight captures on d5, it is a little bit different. For example, if pawn captures, we're going to play bishop to b5, and then if, let's say, c4, attacking the bishop, we can play bishop to a4. And it's a very, very unclear position where it would be black who kind of has the attack, but these pawns are, well, they are quite impressive. So white should be better here, but maybe for a rapid game, it could be a little bit easier for black to play. But okay, after knight to d5, Artemiev played bishop captures on d5, but now it's a bit different. We have e captures on d5, and now a5, trying to open up the a file for his rook, and Magnus says thank you for the passed pawn. Now my pawn here on b5 is defended. I also have the b6 square covered, so I like my position here. But Artemiev will of course continue pushing this pawn. We have a4, and now bishop to d4. At some point this knight will move, so we don't want to worry about this dark square bishop honing in on that b2 pawn. So here we have castles by Artemiev and king to b1 now. A3, trying to open up the a file, but Magnus says nope, that's not happening. We have queen to c8. Now helping out with the e6 square, but also at some point you will have use for the queen on the c file. We have c4 by Magnus, and now a2 with check. We have king to a1 again because the bishop is on d4. We're perfectly safe here. There are no dangers from black's dark square bishop. We have rook to e8, now preparing to bust open through the e file, and now rook h to e1 by Magnus. We have e5 attacking the bishop here, and the Magnus happily trades on e6 en passant. So captures, we have rook captures on e6, and now bishop to d3. We have d5. Now the queen is nicely placed here, and black has to figure out how to. White has to figure out how to counter this. If you play something like c5, yes, it seems like you're getting two connected pass pawns here, but we can actually capture this with the queen. That's the problem. And now if bishop captures, we can just play knight to e4 check, open up a discovery here, and pick up white's queen. So you have to be careful not to overextend those pawns right away. So after d5, Magnus just plays queen to b2, gets his queen to safety, and now you are putting a lot of pressure here on this knight. So d captures on c4, we have bishop captures on c4, attacking the rook, we have trade on e1, rook captures, and now queen to d8, defending the knight here and also putting pressure on this bishop. And here you could try a lot of things, but you never want to trade. If you trade here, it's just game over. Black's going to capture with the queen, and after captures, it's game over. There's no square for your king. You have to give up the rook, and bishop captures will be checkmate. So Magnus starts with h4. He wants to play g5, kick the knight away, and trade his bishop here. So g5, and here we have captures, h captures, and now again Magnus really wants to get g5 in, so he starts by sacrificing the f4 pawn. There really isn't anything better, so g captures on f4, we have g5, and now you can't really move the knight. If you move the knight and try and trade here, captures, just g6, and that's it. You can't move the pawn, white just wins easily. So here we reached the position from the thumbnail, and of course Artemiev captured on d4 with the queen. He played bishop captures on d4, so sacrificing the queen temporarily. Magnus of course has to capture it. We have queen captures on d4, and now knight to g4. Now the queen will be captured. There's nothing you can do about this. If rook e5, both the knight and the bishop cover e5, so also that doesn't help. But there is only one move that wins the game for Magnus, so feel free to pause the video and try to find this idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding it. As like I said, it's the only move that wins. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's bishop captures on f7. That's the good stuff. And now the problem is the king cannot capture this bishop. If you capture it, then comes the rook sacrifice. And now after you capture the rook, now the bishop is not undefended. We're going to capture it with check, and now we keep our queen. So of course, black will not allow this. He played king to f8, but now comes rook to e8 with check, with the same idea. If you capture, then rook e7, and the same idea applies. So rook captures, rook was played, but now Magnus just plays queen captures on g7. So now giving back the queen, but on his terms. We have king captures and bishop captures on e8. And what does this mean for Magnus? Well, it means that he's up a pawn, and that's how these guys play chess. You sacrifice a queen to win a pawn. It's completely lost for Artemiev. Yes, this pass pawn is very, very close to queening, but that is not happening. He pushes f3, but Magnus easily finds the move because it's the only move. You have to stop the pawn, and it helps because by playing b6 to free up the b5 square for your bishop, you're also pushing your own pass pawn, which is of course completely winning. So here, knight to e3, you don't have... you don't gain anything by pushing the pass pawn because the bishop can easily stop it. b7 by Magnus, and now knight to c2 check. Now he wants to, he has to stop the passed b pawn somehow. King captures on a2, knight b4 check. We have king to a3, now knight to a6. So guarding against queening. We have bishop to b5, attacking this knight, and now knight to b8. And now the problem is, of course, when the bishop is, when this knight is boxed in like this, the bishop is not letting it out. So this knight is now trapped here forever. We have bishop to d3. Magnus says, I don't need to keep control of the knight. I need to keep an eye on this king, because now the pawn and the bishop are creating a wall. So the white king cannot reach this pawn, and there's really not much more Artemiev can do. He plays knight d7, sort of trying to maybe, wait to see what Magnus will do. But now just king b4. We have f2, but now king to b5. We have king to f7. Now comes b4. We have king to e6, now comes king to a6, king to d6, now comes king to a7. So now you're ready to promote this pawn to a queen and win the knight. So king to c7, guarding this square, but now comes g6, and he was in this position on move 49 that Vladislav Artemiev resigned the game, and with it the match, as Magnus won the first game. Second game ended in a draw, and now Magnus gets a win. So it's 2.5 points already for Magnus, and there is no way for Artemiev to tie the second match to even force tie breaks. So yeah, basically the only win Artemiev got was that third game in the first match where Magnus made a mouse slip, but it was a really funny mouse slip because Magnus was he was hovering over a square with his queen. He wanted to place, I think it was the e7 square, and then he decided against it, and he wanted to put it back to where it was. I think on e5 maybe. But he accidentally dropped it on e6, and he didn't even realize, and he thought that it was still his move, and only after a full minute, when Artemiev played the move, he realized that he actually played a move that he didn't want to play. So yeah, kind of funny. Not only was it a mouse slip, but also Magnus did not realize that he even played a move. But yeah, here in this position you resign. You cannot defend against both of these threats, so at some point you're gonna have to move. If knight b8, then we push this pawn, and now okay, we can play knight c6 check, but we're gonna play king a8, and now again it's impossible to prevent both pawns. If you play this to guard this one, then this pawn queens, and vice versa. So yeah, after g6, Magnus wins the second match and the entire big match, which makes him the winner of the Aimchess US Rapid Knockouts 2021. And there we have it. And I've seen a lot of people writing in the comments that, oh yeah, and Nepo is going to really get it in November, that Magnus is completely on fire. But even though, okay, Artemiev is an amazing player, I still would not say that he is as good as Nepo. And if Nepo was in the finals, I think Nepo would also have a have a really good time playing against well, pretty much anyone. So I think regarding classical games, it's gonna be fun because it's different. In if you remember in 2016 in New York when Magnus played against Karyakin, it was okay. He lost one game and then he somehow won one game, which was we had two decisive games in the classical, but then against Fabi in London, it was 12 draws, 12 consecutive draws. So that was very tough work. But now I don't think it'll be like that. I think we're gonna have a lot more action and maybe a bit more decisive games in the classical section. But we'll see. Who knows? The engines have gone a long way since the last World Chess Championship match, and who knows what's in store for us. But yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it and this short coverage by me of this tournament. I would like to thank Christoph Alexander Sopa, CakeDeFi.com, Vincent Natale, Rory O'Connor, and David Kimura for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and checking out whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.